Kuzawulunga. Kuzawulunga. Kuzawulunga.
Can you get in?
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming and making yourself available for this momentous occasion, our press conference around South Africa and the future of South Africa. We are here on a very special day, and we appreciate everybody here to make the time out to come and hear the discussions, and I can imagine everybody's waiting with bated breath in terms of the direction that South Africa is going to be taking with the municipalities. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our leader, Musi Maimane, who will talk to us about the coalition discussions and take us into further discussions. Thank you, leadership.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, fellow South Africans, and equally so to the leaders of the respective political parties that are here, to which I will speak about in a moment. August the 3rd will become a moment where South Africans will need to mark as a momentous time in our nation. It was a time when so many South Africans went out in their numbers and said, the way things are going at the moment simply is not working for us. What we desire for our nation to go forward is change. And South Africans came out in their numbers, not only achieved the first objective, which was to reduce the ANC to below 60%, quite significantly to 53%. They also put us in a situation where we were able to bring the ANC to below 50% in the metros here in Gauteng, Nelson Mandela Bay, obviously. This to us presented an opportunity that is bound to come before us once in a lifetime, that will enter a new democratic dispensation in South Africa. When the opportunity was presented to us, we had to think extensively about, well, what does it mean for this country? And the first point of departure was the fact that it became quite critical that it accelerated the project of the realignment of politics in South Africa. It's a very important project if we are going to achieve a functioning democracy in our nation. And indeed, it was a tipping point and a very historic election. I think without doubt that the people of this particular city, then furthermore, and I'll speak firstly as leader of the DA, to say they then said, we recognize your brand of good governance. The urgency you put forward in saying you want to run clean governments for all South Africans, wherever those South Africans are from. That ultimately, we want to live in a country where the economy is prosperous and can create work for people. And that the long-term destination is that as we govern in more places, there's always potential that we set ourselves up for an opportunity to govern nationally in this country. That is what we stood for. It is also quite important that we accept the fact that our parties has always stood on the principle of good governance and constitutionalism, and the fact that we've always wanted a professional civil service, a sense at which we'll always, whatever the cost may be, pursue a non-racial South Africa for all. These are the fundamental tenets that we stood for, and we will never move away from those. Because indeed, it is immaterial, I said it to you before, that when the position to negotiate for coalitions was put before us, we wanted to be clear that we would never compromise principle for the pragmatic view of saying, how do we just enter a government? And therefore, those principles needed to be strong. Fellow South Africans, I think it would be fair to acknowledge the fact that coalition politics are not new in South Africa. We pioneered this when we took over the city of Cape Town in what was a very tricky and a difficult coalition. But we had to make it work because it gave effect to political change, and it gave effect to the opportunity for South Africans to express their choice at the ballot box between this type of government or that type of government. And so, we then, with my colleagues who are here, subsequent to the 3rd of August results, took time to negotiate with all the respective parties. Because we felt it would give us an opportunity for us not only just to focus narrowly on the numbers question as to how many do you need, but broadly, how do you position an alternative for South Africa that will take South Africa to a prosperous nation? So we did in good faith negotiate with all the parties. And I am glad to announce that in fact sitting here today, we've entered into an arrangement to form governments with the Congress of the People as represented by Ntate Therale Kota, who will speak in a moment, with the African Christian Democratic Party represented there by me. We've also entered into an agreement with the Freedom Front Plus. We've entered into an agreement with the United Democratic Movement, who are represented, and I want to say up front, General Bantu Holomisa is on his way here. He got delayed, obviously, by an accident on the M1, which might be a clear sign that we do need a new government in the city of Johannesburg. We've also come into a form of agreement with the IFP. And these agreements commit us to a number of things as expressed when we took up the opportunity. We wanted to put a framework agreement up front. Because this framework agreement commits the respective parties to a number of things that are key. Those are about how do you govern for the people of South Africa? How do you maintain the South African Constitution? How do you pursue, as I've allowed, the issue of non-racialism, free and fair elections? That in fact, there are some principles that we want to focus on service delivery for our people. It can't be, surely, in the South Africa that we live in today, that in Nelson Mandela Bay, there are South Africans who are still using buckets as systems. And that must be a clarion call that the people of this country want us to deliver for those who have been left behind and focus deliberately on how do we build a government for all South Africans. This agreement has had to be set nationally for the purpose of ensuring that we could really discuss how best we do local government within a constitutional framework. There could never have been discussions about saying how do we amend, or rather, what are the things that fall outside the Constitution of South Africa? That could be a discussion for further down the line. That says to us, within what the Constitution empowers local government to do, what can we do? And so there are many things that we've brought into place. And just to give you some highlights, they highlight the fact that, look, we want to set up transparent and open tender processes. Want to make sure that there's zero tolerance for corruption. Want to ensure that our governments will avoid irregular and fruitless expenditure. That we will always have a fit-for-purpose executive that ensures that people who govern and serve in municipalities are the best people to do so. And that we've never sought to say we are going to act in a way to purge any staff. I want to reiterate that point, because South Africans who are working in municipalities are key. They are key people who can help us deliver on the mandate that South Africans have given us. And therefore, it then becomes absolutely critical that they are the best people to be able to do that. And we always look to appoint people, not on the basis of friends or political connections, but really let's appoint the best people to deliver for people. Obviously, our views have been put here about how we feel about things like blue light brigades. And I know as a resident of Johannesburg how difficult it is when you are on the M1. But also that we must bring forward an integrated public transport and broadband to enhance opportunities for people. There are many aspects of this agreement that I could go into, but I felt it be important that we share upfront that this is an agreement that seeks to put the people of South Africa first, ahead of anything else. I want to also say the question perhaps on some people's lips would be where happened to the EFF? We in good faith went out and negotiated with the EFF. I wanted us to be clear about who we are and clear about who they are. It is quite clear that we would never agree on ideological issues. Couldn't be. Never be able to do that. Because there are many positions that are so vastly different upon these two parties, and that's why democracy provides that both parties must exist. I welcome their offer that they have made today to say they will vote for us. It is an offer they made themselves, which means there is no agreement between us and the EFF. There is no coalition government in this instance, because we won't in any place then say you take that position and whatever. That is not the issue. Their issue is that as per their communication, they said they will vote for us. And I welcome that. It gives us a great opportunity for us to form governments in Tshwane, in Nelson Mandela Bay. And of course, our focus is on the other hung municipalities, how we then govern going forward. So from henceforth, we then begin the earnest work of saying, how do we establish these councils? How do we ensure that they are workable? And how do we deliver for all South Africans? I'd made it clear that we weren't negotiating with the ANC, because I think South Africans have given us that change mandate. They've asked us about that. Now, fellow South Africans, this presents an opportunity and some new waters for us as a country. None of these parties are merging. All of them remain independent. We've agreed to say where we can form governments, we must. And those governments must operate in a particular way. So with those notes, from us as the DA, we stand, and we've got a coalition agreement here to which I will sign up front and give each leader an opportunity to make one or two inputs and then sign respectively. So on behalf of the DA, I now commit us to say we want to form governments, want to deliver for the people, and set up governments that are clean and transparent, and we enter into an agreement with political parties who share those principles and want to take South Africa forward. I thank you. I don't know if you want to make some comments there, Doctor.
Should I try to speak to that?
Yeah, try and scream. I was about to try and move these microphones, might be tricky.
Not sure. Mr. Mamani, all the other leaders, ladies and gentlemen, to swap. I can get closer. All right.
Come closer.
Coming closer.
Kom nader.
Kom nader. And I do have a cold in my voice, and I think it's from all the problems and tensions and negotiations. Yeah, thank you very much. First, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone, and thank you for you. We all watched the previous press conference, and I think this one is just as important. I really think it's history in more than one way that's happening today. And you know, I've been in politics quite a long time, and meaning more than one. I've been, and my party have been to Kudesa, where we negotiated that settlement with all the complications. And there was a debate on proportional representation or not. And in the end, it was decided that that will be the electoral system that we have up till now, and it's also in the Constitution, Article 157. Part of the reason for that was that it brings in an extra check, if you want, check and balance on power. That the dream, if you look at other countries, that no party really gets above 50%, and then there's more control over power as another check and balance. Up to now, that didn't really work, because the ANC got their 60+% always, and the system was more always one party than that. And I think it's really the first election, and that's my first point from a historic point of view, where the system kicks in, if I may put it that way, and we have 27 hung municipalities, quite a few major metros from that, and for the first time you see that part of democracy in action. Of course, it always ends up with more political parties, and like in all systems, and then, of course, coalitions. Now, if you looked at our propaganda, if I may talk on behalf of my party, we predicted there will be lots of coalitions afterwards, and we said to our voters, we will be willing to take part in those coalitions and carry our values into that coalition, because that's part of the positive of the system. So I think we are really entering now a new political phase. I think a second historic fact is that for the first time you've got such a broad cooperation between parties at this big scale, not only talking about elections, but also going into govern. And I think that's also historic, a very important second part. I'm not going to read all the things I think Mr. Mamani read. I just want to read one paragraph, if I may. They said the parties, because we struggled quite long to get this document and everybody's satisfied, so I can read whatever I like here from my side, but let's read one. The parties are committed to bringing open, honest, accountable and responsive government to the people of South Africa. The parties have the opportunity to bring this transformatory government to the inhabitants of the various municipalities listed in the appendix here too, in which they jointly command the majority of seats, and the resolve to form coalition governments in these areas. Now I think just the idea of new government, trying to make it better. Now, as I said, there's also always more than 10 parties in a proportional system. And if I may, just one note, and because of coalitions, then all parties are important, small ones and big ones, and you'll understand why I emphasize that with gems on my next right-hand side. The election results then also, we got this co-government agreement that prove the way that how important it is, that people out there can vote and then still be represented, and that we can together make South Africa a better place. If the goal of this agreement is to swallow other parties or silence them, then it will not work, and we all know that. But if the goal is to recognize the crisis in which South Africa is at the moment, and I really agree that is where we are, and that their leaders then, as we are here, we differ surely on a lot of issues, but we are responsible, we are willing to work together, and to emphasize not that where we differ, but there we are in common. And that's the way that coalitions normally work. Then surely it will work for the benefit of all South Africans, and that's the aim at the moment. I want to say one word of thank you for my supporters that supported the Freedom Front Plus. It's not the place to brag, but we did double our support, and we are the first strongest party. And therefore it's important. Therefore you can play a role in these things, otherwise you're out of these games. Let me conclude. I really believe we've got a beautiful country, and we all agree with that. We have a country with unbelievable potential, and I think we all can agree with that, if governed correctly. And that is hopefully the hope coming from this table today. From my experience, 80% of all South Africans want to live in peace together and in harmony with each other. We don't want conflict, we don't want to fight, we don't want racial polarization as being done during the election time. And surely, hopefully we can convey that message at the end of the day. We are willing from the Freedom Front side to give this experiment a chance, this agreement, And we really believe it can work to the benefit of all. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
You need a pen.
It's a special pen.
Special pen.
Oh, sorry. This is the pen. If you use another one, it doesn't count. That's the pen.
Am I allowed to make a statement before I sign?
Of course you can.
Thank you very much. Good day, fellow South Africans, fellow leaders of opposition parties. The Congress of the People is happy to join with others and with yourselves on this historic day and time. And we start by extending our deepest gratitude and congratulations to the very important people of our country, the voters, who have made this occasion possible. They in voting as they did, have created an opportunity that South Africa has been waiting for a long time. Now South Africans can discuss their differences, can cooperate across party political lines, racial lines, how to take their country into the future. We thank the voters for this opportunity. We are also happy that this opportunity comes at this time. Opposition parties here congregated and others who are not here have had opportunities to exchange views over a period of time, trying to find ways of working together, and have learned in the process to know each other. Without that exercise, it might not have been possible to take full advantage of the moment that has now presented itself. The work we did in the Collective for Democracy in the Fourth Democratic Parliament, and so on, laid the foundations for this work. Now, gathered here, I can say without batting an eye, are opposition parties which are firmly committed to defending the Constitution of our country, for ensuring that that framework which President Mandela signed on behalf of all of us at Sharpeville remains the guiding one, how to take the country forward. But most important, how to take our country in the present constitutional crisis in which the incumbent in the office of president, the executive, the majority of the National Assembly, and so on, are actually in default of the Constitution because they failed to uphold the Constitution at critical moments. This occasion lays the foundations for South Africans through these opposition parties and so on to take our country out of that crisis so that each and every one of us South Africans can respect our Constitution, can be bound and guided by it what they do from day to day. We are really, truly grateful that we are here, that this opportunity is with us. Local government is an exceptionally appropriate level of government to start at, because the foundation that is being laid now is going to tell when we go to the provincial and national elections. By then, we should, as South Africans, be readier than we are today to calmly look at the issues and take decisions that will guarantee us a prosperous and united South Africa. I thank you. I now take this opportunity on behalf of the Congress of the People to attach our signature to this agreement.
We need to swap.
Yes, yes.
Swap seats. Play musical chairs or do whatever we need to do.
And the pen and the special. I want to be a little bit informal and say, hey, South Africa, South Africans have won. We are entering a whole new season of politics, cooperative governance and coalitions and multi-party governance. And the reason I say South Africa has won is that no one party can govern, and when we are all together, we are better. We did say to the DA during the election campaign that they would need the help of the smaller parties, and so it is proved that they need the help of the smaller parties. But they also need our input in governance. We need to keep each other honest. If I can just say that for our people in these cities that we are looking to govern together, it's a time of maximum accountability and service delivery. Life has to change for our people, particularly in the underserviced townships, which was one of the issues that the ACDP really wanted to foreground in the document. People must be able to have food on the table, a decent roof over their heads, potable and flushing water in their homes. Roads must be tarred, parks must be designated, community facilities must be provided. There must be regular refuse removal, no litter, and an end to the squalor that we've lived with for the last 22 years. Public transport must be affordable, reliable, and safe. In all suburbs, potholes must be fixed and robots working, particularly in Johannesburg. I think the robots are very important here. This and more must be done better, cheaper, faster. And it must be done transparently with accountability and with proper public participation. The looting of public money has to stop. Corruption must stop. Jobs for pals must stop. Inflated tenders must stop. The ANC has not done these things. Therefore, the ANC must stop. In Tshwane, Nelson Mandela Bay, and hopefully in Johannesburg. The ACDP has joined a multi-party government with 4 other parties sitting here alongside us in these cities to make a difference in our daily lives. Local government is where service delivery begins. Local government is where we can really change the daily lives of the majority of our people. And that's why the ACDP has joined in this multi-party agreement, because we believe that together we can do better than the ANC. And I believe we're going to. So thank you very much. Thank you to the South Africans who voted and who tried to make a difference for our country. This is a whole new ball game. I really believe that if we work well together, we can make a huge difference in 2019, and we can have coalitions at that stage as well. It will be for the betterment of our country.
No, I wanted to say you must sign.
I'm going to sign.
Oh,
I was just ending off my
all
little
right,
speech.
all right, all right.
So on behalf of the ACDP, I'm Joanne Downs, by the way. I'm the national chairperson. We gladly sign this document of multi-party governance agreement.
Sondela.
So swapping again.
Good afternoon, fellow South Africans and fellow colleagues from political parties. The United Democratic Movement, pursuant to the Hung municipality, 27 Hung municipalities, was approached by both ANC and the DA, which says to the voters, your vote is not useless wherever you have placed it, because those 2 parties needed the UDM to help them to govern on the Hung municipalities. The UDM's understanding of the coalition government is the coming together of the political parties who believe in the same views that service delivery is central to everything. Uprooting the corruption is the cause that we are fighting for. Creating jobs for South Africans is one of the things that we agree on as these parties. When we came into these talks with other political parties, there were issues that are immediate and there are issues that are long-term, which will take us through to 2019. We have come into this coalition with these parties with the understanding that we are going to change the lives of the communities throughout South Africa where this coalition is going to be governing. Our theme going towards election was put community first. That's why we are now together with other parties to say we cannot have a situation where there is no governance. We believe in good governance. That's why we joined these parties to say South Africa must thrive on what the voters have demanded, because the voters are tired of what's been promised and not delivered. I thank you.
Anzo. Take a special pen. Sorry. Yeah, I think we can take questions as best as we can.
Take 3 questions at a time. Please just let us know who on the panel would like to ask a question, as well as your name and the media house you come from. Start with you, Stephen, Ranjani, and Johnny.
Stephen Curtis, Eyewitness News. I'd like to direct my question, if I can, to Mr. Musino Mani. Mr. Mani, good afternoon to you. What does this mean for the cities? And I would like to hear someone say it, please. Who are going to be the mayors of the big metros, and what's happening in Joburg?
Okay. Right.
Ranjani?
Mr. Mamani, I'm Ranjani Mansami from the Daily Maverick. The EFF says that there's no agreement with you, but they're going to vote along with you. So they've effectively given you and your partners the ability to appoint wherever you want to appoint, but there seems to be just a disclaimer on Johannesburg. Would you be able to tell us what that disclaimer is? And were there any kind of objections from any of you and any of your partners with working with the EFF in the council?
Following on from eNCA, just following on from Ranjani's question, I just want to know this condition that the EFF has put up in Johannesburg between yourselves and the EFF. What is that condition? Then also, Mr. Leporta, in PE, there appears to be a co-councillor there who apparently has reached some kind of an agreement with the ANC. Is that true? Are you aware of that? Please could you confirm that for us? And then lastly, if you could also tell us, realistically speaking, which municipalities, as you've come together now, are you going to realistically be taking over?
Should I answer those 3 and then proceed? So, in our view, we've gone out, Stephen, to say we campaign with a number of candidates, and we've put those candidates forward. In Tshwane, Solim Simanga will be the mayor there. In Nelson Mandela Bay, Ethel Trollip will be the mayor there. In Johannesburg, now there's a joint question here about what is the condition, etc. If our view has always been, the EFF asked us if, look, can you consider what happens with your mayoral candidate in Joburg? And we were quite clear. We asked the people of Johannesburg to vote for Herman Mashaba. And Herman Mashaba stands as our candidate. So we hold strong to that view, to say you can't ask South Africans to vote for a candidate and seek to find a view to change them. And we communicated that, and we wanted us to be clear to say, look, our party operates on particular principles. We don't issue mayorships somewhere, somehow. So the reason we've taken the stance that we have is because it's important for us to honor the relationship we have with voters. And our principle has always been that we select the best for communities, for cities. And in fact, I can use Patricia de Lille, who is here. Had a very successful first term as mayor of Cape Town. She had to apply for the job again and go through the same process. So we weren't going to suddenly, we've got to understand where we sit, and that's why it's important. And I think when it's all said and done, for us, it's important, and it's an important principle that we honor that agreement we have with voters, and we'll put the candidates, as I've outlined, in the respective metros. Hope that covers the question. Ranjani, and I think it's important to note that we don't have a coalition agreement with the EFF. It's fair. So that's an important thing. They have said they will offer us their vote, and I think we've negotiated in good spirit with the EFF. I want to say that up front. Negotiated in good spirit. And it's important for us to, so we welcome their decision, obviously. And we are clear that the change mandate must be executed. But as I've outlined, in the two metros, Nelson Mandela Bay and Tshwane, we can proceed on that basis. And we'll put our candidate forward in Joburg and leave it to their decision-making process to see how they go. That only, I think, covers the question about what was some of the challenge.
Was the councillor Nelson Mandela Bay?
Well, just to say very briefly that the Congress of the People is a unitary party. It is not a federal party. We are committed to particular principles. Firstly, COPE was formed. I'm sorry to have said that.
I don't know if that guy can cope.
We formed the Congress of the People, and as everybody will recall, we said it was in defense of the Constitution. But our Constitution is unitary. We have said times without number that we would not cooperate, collaborate with any instance that disrespects or undermines the Constitution. That principle has not changed. Now, the party cannot have anybody taking a decision in PE who to collaborate with, especially if that instance is an instance that is guilty of undermining the Constitution of this country. There is none of our members who have made a statement or who has negotiated an agreement with anybody else. All of the agreements we make everywhere across the country will flow from the decision that we have just announced here and signed.
All right, 3 more questions. The gentleman here.
Ahmed Jamil from the Daily Box. Firstly to you, Mr. Mamani. At the press briefing with the EFF just now, they said during the negotiations, the talks between the DA and the EFF, that the consideration of removing the stem from the national anthem came up in the discussion, and that he said he quoted you and he said that the DA were, or you were favorable towards the removal of the D stem, comparing it to the idea of Jewish people having to listen to a song by Hitler. Is that accurate? To what degree is it accurate?
I'll respond, yeah.
Sir?
That's one of my questions as well.
Delta.
Can you just second one? Okay, so all of these parties are represented here today. You guys are going to work together. Obviously have a lot of policy angles and things in common, but there are certainly a lot of differences. How is this going to affect practical decision taking on municipal level? And is there no possibility that that service delivery so many voices need to be taken into account. And then just the second question, please, Mr. Self, seeing as you are the white PA face here today, Mr. Malema once again referred to the party as the party for white racists. Can you please respond to that?
What's your name and which
Sorry,
area?
apologies. I've thrown my question there. I'm Jacques Bredek from Cape Verslag.
My question has just been answered.
Oh, it's an answer. Okay, Hajra.
Can you please clarify the role of the IFP in terms of these coalition agreements with a little bit more clarity? Secondly, in Parliament, would you describe it as productive or unproductive in the amount of debates you have over many issues in the and how will this working together, be it in a coalition or in another form, move beyond the election of mayors? Because if you're going to fight about absolutely everything, then surely that affects the cold face of service delivery. So has there been a conversation on that? And thirdly, on the issue of, on your answer on my colleague's questions on Herman Mashaba, you said the DA, the people of Joburg voted for Herman Mashaba. The DA didn't win an outright majority. So if you are in discussions with other parties to get control of Joburg, should that not be up for discussion?
Did you answer the question?
I don't know. I'm an innocent guy.
Should I answer questions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all right. On the first question, there was a broad discussions in the negotiations about things like street renaming, symbolic things that come from apartheid, etc. My response was standard. How you name Tshwane undergoes public participation. Just like in anything around national symbols, etc., they have to undergo that. And many of them are guarded by the Constitution. And first and foremost, I support the Constitution. Secondly, I might hold my personal views about the issue. I said as a child, the further attribution was never part of the negotiation. I said as a child, I had to go through this stem as a poem as a child, so I had to think carefully about that. And still hold a view that the 94 consensus came to some agreement about how you work through that. And I think, given South Africans' consultation and negotiation, they have the freedom to discuss that. Yep. Because emanating from that, let me be clear up front, and this is the position I've always held, the fight is never about the language. Got nothing to do with that. The issue for me is that if we can build a common consensus on things that we agree on, include Afrikaans, because I am always at the forefront of trying to build a negotiated and a consensus for South Africans going forward. That's my position, and that's what I communicated. As for the rest, I can take us. So I stand with the Constitution, I stand with where it goes. The question about policy differences. This is not a merger. Neither is it a collapsing of party positions. There are positions the ACTP takes I don't agree with. There are positions that the Freedom Front Plus takes that I don't agree with. Just like they would have the same across. So this was not an exercise at saying, let's merge all things. No. We will oppose each other. And we will, in Parliament, might even hold different views. Nobody's saying now you get to Parliament and there must just be one voting line. So what this is about. But I think it's also quite instructive that we figure out quite quickly what the delegations are to local government. A local government has a mandate, and core to the mandate of local government is service delivery. Core. I don't, in the broad framework here, it's ironed out a lot of issues about what we mean about that service delivery. So we are not going to have month after month a renegotiation on this and that and that. So Hajra, to your question, this coalition is not a sense at which we will be spending our days trying to renegotiate the Constitution. Local government has a very clear and a specific mandate. Secondly, we hold the view that it's not this body that must run the municipality. The teams that get put together in that municipality must run the municipality. So I'm not interested in now suddenly trying to decide where the pipes in Nelson Mandela Bay must go. Really, the appointed mayor in that place has that responsibility to do so, because they have to pass the budgets, they have to pass the IDP, they have to ensure that they run the municipality. So I think the role, particularly here, is to say, if there is an insurmountable difference, and it would have to be specifically, and it would have to be quite serious, I think, then there is a broad dispute mechanism that has been built into the agreement to which we can deal with. But outside of that, I really think that the teams are capacitated to do so. Certainly from our principle as a party, we don't merge party and state. And we mustn't do that, because that's where the ANC has undermined local government, is when it's indivisible who is party and who is state. Eventually, we are not in that business. Masipala must function and must proceed in this regard, and that's our principle. So I think that's not confusion. I think James can cover.
I'd just like to add on this issue. If you want to remove a refuse from in front of somebody's house, you don't have to be a hardline socialist or a capitalist. So we have to understand that local government, we must depoliticize it, as well as make sure that decisions are taken through consensus and be non-partisan in your approach. The people there are not interested as to whose competence is. If they want water, you are not going to say that is the competence of national departments. So there will have to be a close coordination amongst the three tiers of government. And I hope that those who will be going to the coalition will make sure that they open lines of communications with the provincial as well as the national governments. So, lastly, there is a fear that maybe the ruling party might try and apply undeclared sanctions. We will deal with that one, but if they don't want democracy to function here, they should not even think about that. That money belongs to the taxpayers of South Africa, and we're not going to beg them for that. We'll follow the rules and regulations. Thank you.
Just one sentence just on coalitions as such. Coalitions can be unstable, but interesting enough, you look at Good Governance Africa rated South African municipalities. The top municipality was a coalition. Under the top 15, there was 3 coalitions. So just to put in, it can't go both sides, actually. Let's hope we go for the top.
Yeah. Sorry, before James answers your question, Jacques, I just wanted to say that I found your characterization of him as just the white face quite patronizing. James is the chairperson of the DA's Federal Executive. He's an elected leader of the Democratic Alliance. He's not here just as the white face.
In my defense, that was meant tongue-in-cheek.
All right. No, not a problem. No, during these negotiations, we found that we had to really move beyond the rhetoric that was contained in many parties' manifestos and to drill down to what was really important. Now, it's very easy to brand people as white racists. It is not true of our party. We have a very good record of having acted with alacrity against any occasion where people were accused of being racist in any way whatsoever, and I deny and reject the label with the contempt that it deserves. Coming to the IFP, the IFP is in a slightly different position because what we have is a reciprocal arrangement where we will assist the IFP to become the governing party in certain municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal in return for their support in assisting us to become the government in certain municipalities elsewhere, but we are not taking any positions in their governments and they're not taking any positions in ours.
Okay, the last round of questions. We'll take 4 questions.
What was?
Generous 4 questions. Genevieve, the gentleman there, Aldrin, and Karim.
Last one.
Otherwise, we could be here all evening. I understand.
Okay, I'll take 5 questions.
Yeah, take the 5. Take the 5. Take the 5. Don't run a protest. Sorry. Kaloku, other people must go file, etc. So I want to respect you. And because we're in Joburg, you can't get out of traffic easily.
This is for the Freedom Fund Plus. There was a lot of talk that the ANC approached the Freedom Fund Plus in a number of municipalities, I think somewhere in the Parliament. Does that mean the Freedom Fund Plus is going to agreement with the ANC? And then also for all of you on Khululeni, if you add the numbers, if the EFF votes with all of you, it's 109, 109. What is your feeling about what happens in Khululeni, or how to shift?
Spin a coin. Head or tail.
Good afternoon, Alvin St-Pierre from SABC TV News. On Joburg, is the DA comfortable with handing over Joburg to the ANC and let the ANC control Joburg as a minority party? Because even if you look at the numbers at the moment, I think the EFF stands at about 11%. So you will not fight for the EFF's 11% by getting rid of Herman Mashaba. The second question is that throughout the campaigns of the DA has been emphasizing the issue around e-tolls. Does this mean that the start of getting rid of e-tolls starts now? The process of getting rid of e-tolls starts now from a municipality level. And the final question is, do you at all regret saying that don't vote for small political parties?
They should. How many questions? You took all 5.
I just want to clear up, just as a point of clarity, if I understand you correctly, if you can't get over Mashaba as mayor of Johannesburg, you're willing to go to something the opposition next. But considering that, you have probably have a mandate, absolutely have a mandate from people who voted for you. But don't you also have a mandate from the people who usually voted for the ANC and who didn't in this election? And the second question, just for clarity, what's going to happen in Rustenburg?
Yeah, Jan actually stole my question on Rustenburg. I wanted to ask the parties, have there been any talks about what's happening in Rustenburg, especially also the smaller parties?
Why don't you brief us if you have intelligence?
I have another question about the ANC and the DA in coalition in Kanaland. There are the reports that you're going to coalition there. And how many municipalities will you go into coalition with the ANC? And just another question about the Constitution. Ms. Lamani, you said that you respect the Constitution and that's your absolute. But if I recall correctly, the SCDP did not vote in favour of the Constitution. How do you reconcile? I mean, I know you've been in coalitions with them before, but maybe just explain how you can reconcile working with them.
Okay.
My name is Moses Moyo from Joburg Gazette. On the Joburg matter, I want to ask the EFF does not agree with the DA. As they say, there is a small matter you have to deal with. Are you guys willing to give up Joburg, or you will be going the option of rerun elections in Joburg?
Thank you very much.
All right, maybe if you can just make a quick clarification.
Okay. It's true that the ACDP did not vote for the Constitution. It was because of various clauses that we felt gave certain people an extra amount of rights. But in the very next election, we actually swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and we are a constitutional party. And so I don't think that is an issue at all.
Maybe the Freedom Front, to answer your question.
I think we had two fascinating weeks after the past us. I like Pretty Women. It's quite a good movie. And
the movie.
The movie, yeah. and I tried to learn lessons from
Helpful.
that. And it seemed the woman that's successful normally is one that plays hard to get. And it seemed the prostitutes are very easy on the other side.
Careful.
I might be wrong. But that is, I mean, Pretty Women in the sense that what I tried to convey is we were very popular. We had a letter from the ANC. I think you saw that in a sense. It was from Limpopo. We didn't leak it. I can assure you that. It was leaked from the other side. We had letters from other parties as well. We had negotiations on provincial levels with the ANC. We had the negotiation with the ANC on top level because we said we don't negotiate on provincial level or local level. We'll only do it on the top level. So we had one with the ANC and we had with the DA. And then we put all the facts together and made our decisions in the end of the day. So that would mean that we were very popular. We know once the marriage is over, you're not popular anymore, then you're in. And so Rustenburg is quite a complicated one. We'll have to look at that after what Mr. Malema said, in the sense that we'll have to make the calculations. Does it change the difference to that side and that side? The Freedom Front plays a role in quite a few municipalities where we can make a difference, 1 to 2, depending on the permutations. At the moment, we've got this agreement going, and then we said for the local people, then provincial level, to negotiate the local issues. And they can come back to us if there's a problem, and surely we'll look at that one after what we heard this morning.
Great. I think there are a number of issues I must respond to. The first is, I think the question was about Ekurhuleni and where Ekurhuleni sits, and numbers-wise. I mean, I think to be fair, if the AIC, who are not here, votes with the ANC, which might super be appropriate, simply as for where the voters sit. But I think we've reached out to the AIC. I tried to meet with them. They put certain conditions on the table. And subsequent to that, they've taken their own view. Remember, we were always quite clear. We are not going to, when you go into a negotiation, of course there are things that you can discuss, but then there are certain things that are just principle. And you don't want to compromise on that. So at this point in time, my suspicion, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the AIC, but without them, Ekurhuleni is not doable. That's just the real numbers and the bottom line behind the issue. On the question of e-tolls, look, we've never shied away from our position of e-tolls. In fact, our mayoral candidates got together and put a position that says, if we got elected in Gauteng, then we would oppose this question of e-tolls, because we always have. We've stuck to that position. The city of Cape Town, in fact, has been quite effective at fighting e-tolls in the city of Cape Town. So that fight must continue, because the people of Gauteng have expressed a view on that issue. And despite the numerous reviews of trying to reconfigure how you charge people, etc., our sense is that there are other ways of talking about road infrastructure and road build and a calculation of cost that make sure that South Africans don't have to deal with e-tolls. So I think we're quite clear on that stance. And if we're to get sworn in mayors, part of their mandate and their fight is that they must fight that issue, considering that e-tolls is a national competence issue. I think we must not try and say to people, just because the DA as mayors here, e-tolls are gone. No, there's national legislation that follows, that empowers the South African government for the purpose of tolling. The question about don't vote for small parties, a lot was said during the elections. A lot. I think if you ask people here, they said some things about us that I need to ask them if they regret, if they said some of those things about us. But in the business of politics, we're maximizing votes. So it happened in. I needed just to put that up. In Rustenburg, I think our view is that we've delegated the powers down to the province itself. Our principal commitment there still remains that, look, we must put an opposition there in Rustenburg. And when I spoke yesterday at the Marikana Commission, I said it's important that the people of Rustenburg get a government that will deliver on the issues that are outstanding in that community. Because the ANC is certainly not going to work hard to build road infrastructure there and continue. So we need a government that will do that. So our view is that we must get a government there that will achieve that objective. So at this point in time, that discussions are taking place in Rustenburg. If I'm not mistaken, the Rustenburg Council has been postponed. Yeah. So that will go ahead. Yeah, I think you can, maybe just finish my the Joburg question.
Yes.
The voters gave us a mandate, but not a complete mandate. But they gave that mandate to someone. And just otherwise, you undermine your first question, which is to say, how do you put up candidates? You do ask an important question as to, is this issue in the context of what is big, not being subsumed underneath that? I think it's not just about only just even the individual here. It's also about how the contract with voters, how do we select mayoral candidates? It's not just waking up tomorrow morning saying to people, right, this one's gone, this one's coming in. Our processes don't work like that. We want to respect the will of the people, but we also have to respect our institutional processes. And therefore, in answer to the question, am I comfortable seeing the ANC back into power in Joburg? I would not be in politics if I was comfortable with that. Of course I'm not. We campaign for change in Joburg and we want change in Joburg. But for that to happen, you need a mandate from the people. So if there's abstinence that takes place from what the EFF does, then I think we've tried our best to really effect the change. We really would. And then I think, I see the general has got his hand here. Maybe let me just take that one, and then I'll wrap it up so we close.
Well, advising in the spirit of non-interference between EFF and DA, I think we should collectively take responsibility for Gauteng as coalition partners. I would urge you, therefore, that we don't put much emphasis on this issue. We still have about until Monday to fix problems if there are any. So the talks must continue. We are not here to play. Thank you.
I mean, I think just to add on further, really, I'm not here to defend an individual. I think I must honor what the party stands for, and we must have a conversation. But I think it's important for me to put forward how we work. And I think the discussions are ongoing. I think it's better to leave it at that point.
Just finally, to deal with Kanaland, what appears to be the situation there is that some local structures of the party engaged in some unauthorized agreements with the ANC.
Much was paid.
This is subject to an investigation by our party, and if it is found that the people acted outside of their mandate, then disciplinary steps will be taken against them, and the DA speaker that was elected yesterday, I think it was, will be required to resign.
I think just as I close, look, it is a very difficult process to negotiate. I think I'm grateful for the parties who are here, who have supported us. I really am also deeply humbled by the EFF's own stance in terms of how they want to approach matters. I think it shows the direction that South Africa wants to take. And we want to do our best that we can to ensure that we stop patronage and we destroy a very arrogant organization in the ANC. And so that discussion is ongoing, and that's where we sit. And it's absolutely important that we honor what the people of South Africa want and how we want to go about it. We are not here to try and posture ourselves as anything. We're simply a party that wants to serve the people of South Africa. And I want to thank everybody for coming through. Perhaps it might be good for us to stand and...
Just 1 point. That's 1 point. We must remind each other that since President Zuma ascended to power, the initiative has been with the opposition parties in this country. We have won many cases against the ANC. For me and my colleagues, most of us, it was easy to hammer this agreement. One of the easiest negotiations I've ever been involved in, because we have been working together in Parliament in full view of South Africans. And South Africans rewarded these opposition parties through the current results of the elections. Thank you.
I think let's just stand together and take the picture. Thank you so much.
Like a concertina.
Very well. Like this.
Just want to make it a little bit more. Stand here. The ladies in the... Yes, otherwise it's going to be all men.
Like this.
Stop. Thank you.
That's it, it's done.
General.
It's enough. General decided it's enough. Enough.
I think he's big tired for this.
Let us to the end.